3. Economy. 3.1 Gross Domestic Product, GDP, estimation in India. Why in the news? The Ministry of Finance issued clarification regarding the ongoing debate around the accuracy of the April to June 2023 GDP data. More about the news. Times India recorded real GDP growth of 7.8% during the April-June period of 2023 to 24 as per the income or production approach, the highest in the past 4 quarters. It was on the back of double-digit expansion in the services sector, which forms 56% of gross value added. Times critics argued that these GDP figures are inflated as they do not accurately reflect the impact of inflation on GDP growth. GDP calculation approaches. There are 3 approaches to calculating the GDP of a country. Times production or value-added approach. It sums the value added at each stage of production, where value added is defined as total sales less the value of intermediate inputs into the production process. Times income approach. It measures the total income earned by the factors of production. Income earned by all the factors of production in an economy includes the wages paid to labor, the rent earned by land, the return on capital in the form of interest, as well as corporate profits. Times expenditure approach. This measures the total expenditure incurred by all entities on goods and services within the domestic boundaries of a country. Ideally, the growth rate in 3 approaches should be the same. However, due to variations in data collection and processing, often referred to as statistical discrepancy, there are often gaps between the 3 which are taken into account while making the final calculation. Present GDP calculation methodology in India. Times income method. Government of India follows the consistent practice of using the income side estimates to compute economic growth. Times real and nominal GDP. The Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, MoSPI, calculates quarterly GVA, gross value added, at constant prices, 2011 to 12, real GDP, and current prices, nominal GDP. 32 www. Times GDP deflator. The GDP deflator, also called implicit price deflator, is a measure of inflation. It is the ratio of nominal GDP to real GDP. This ratio helps show the extent to which the increase in GDP has happened on account of higher prices rather than an increase in output. Nominal GDP does not take inflation into account while the real GDP does. This is the reason that nominal GDP is more often higher than real GDP. Challenges with current GDP calculation methodology. Times accuracy of data. The GDP calculation depends on the accuracy and credibility of the available data. Outdated data in various sectors of the economy provide an inaccurate picture of the economic activity. Also, in India, the GDP results declaration cycle runs for 3 years. Effectively, the accurate data for one FY comes through after a lag of 3 years. Times accounting unorganized sector. Presently, GDP computation methodology uses data from the organized sector as a proxy for the unorganized sector. Times exclusion. Not all productive activity is included in GDP. For example, unpaid work, such as that performed in the home or by volunteers, and black market activities are not included because they are difficult to measure and value accurately. Why GDP is not a very good marker to measure development. Times misleading growth. GDP is not a measure of the overall standard of living or well-being of a country. Many key goods, including peacefulness, environmental protection or family bonding, are not measured in GDP because they do not involve transactions. Times inclusion of social harm. GDP even calculates social harm if it generates a positive economic activity. For instance, a train crash which generates Rs 1 billion worth of track repairs, medical bills and funeral costs is deemed by this measure as beneficial as an uninterrupted service which generates Rs 1 billion in sales. Times non-inclusion of social and environmental aspects. It does not allow for assessment of social aspects of people's life, state of health, quality of education, length of time for leisure etc. or accounting of natural capital. Way forward. Times base year updation. Regular updation of the base year is required in order to maintain the accuracy of the volume estimates of GDP. The current base year is 2011 to 12, which is more than a decade older. Times double deflation. Countries can take steps to adopt double deflation. It means that outputs and inputs are deflated separately using relevant output and input price indices. Times robust data. Timely data collection, storage and processing, especially with the help of emerging tools such as big data and artificial intelligence, can increase the accuracy of GDP estimation. Times measurement of productive activity. All productive activities of an economy irrespective of the economic transactions such as voluntary work, unpaid household work etc. can be included in the GDP figure. 3.2 Cross-border payments. Why in the news? G20 TechSprint 2023 was organized to promote innovative solutions aimed at improving cross-border payments. More about the news. Times G20 TechSprint 2023 is a joint initiative of the Reserve Bank of India, RBI, and the Bank for International Settlements, BIS, Innovation Hub. Times the G20 nations have agreed to promote cross-border payments, as outlined in the G20 roadmap for enhancing cross-border payments. Times further, on the sidelines of the G20 summit, India has proposed to expand its presence for cross-border bill payments in the UK through the Bharat Bill Payment System, BBPS. 33 www. About cross-border payments. Times it is a type of transaction that takes place between financial institutions, businesses, and individuals, where the sender and recipient are based in separate countries. The cross-border payments market value is estimated to be $190 trillion in 2023 and expected to reach $290 trillion by 2030. Common types of cross-border payment type working international wire transfers times involves the sender providing their bank with instructions to send money to a recipient in another country. Times e.g. using SWIFT codes to transfer from one bank to another bank in a different country. Digital wallets times using products such as PayPal, Google Pay, or Apple Pay. Times suitable for small transaction. International money orders times paper-based payment method that can be sent through the mail or transmitted electronically using a third-party provider. Credit card transactions times businesses can accept payments from customers in different currencies through accepted credit cards. Cryptocurrencies times cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin and Ethereum are decentralized digital currencies that can be used to make cross-border payments. Significance of cross-border payments. Times financial inclusion, it can play a pivotal role in bridging the gap and enabling underserved communities to participate in the global economy. Times access to global markets, it allows businesses to expand into international markets and reach new customers, suppliers, and partners. Times diversification, it enables businesses to diversify their customer base, supplier base, and investment portfolio. Times globalization, cross-border payments are a fundamental element of the globalization process. Additional significance of cross-border payments for Indian economy times is remittances. Since 2016, India's cross-border remittances have been growing at a CAGR of 8%. Times facilitating travel and tourism. In 2021, the travel and tourism industry in India contributed around $178 billion to the country's GDP. Times accelerating foreign investment. India received a total FDI inflow of $97 billion in FY 2023. 34 www.visionia. Steps taken in India for strengthening cross-border payments times RBI Payments Vision 2025. One of its focus areas is to bring ease in cross-border payment by using bilateral and multilateral arrangements. Times NIBL, NPCI International Payments Limited, has undertaken various initiatives across nations to enable cross-border acceptance of Bheem UPI QR at merchant establishments. Currently, Bheem UPI QR has gained acceptance in Singapore, UAE, Mauritius, Nepal and Bhutan. Times RBI has allowed access to Unified Payments Interface, UPI, to foreign nationals and NRIs visiting India by enabling them to make payments using UPI while they are in India. Times India UAE MoU on use of CBDC for cross-border payments. RBI and the Central Bank of United Arab Emirates have signed an MoU to conduct pilots to test central bank digital currency, CBDC, transactions for cross-border payments. Way forward. Times improve existing payment infrastructures and arrangements through measures like aligning processes and operating hours across systems, interlinking existing payment systems, etc. Times adopt a harmonized ISO 20022 version, an open global standard for financial information, for message format. Times collaborate with fintech companies specializing in cross-border payments to leverage their expertise and innovative solutions. Times explore the potential role of new payment infrastructures and arrangements like central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Times ensure compliance with international and local regulations, including anti-money laundering, AML, and Know Your Customer, KYC, requirements. Times rigorous and effective risk assessments to reduce the burden associated with compliance checks and facilitate market entry. 3.3 Corporate Governance. Why in the news? The revised G20 OECD Principles of Corporate Governance were endorsed at the G20 Leaders Summit in New Delhi, India. More on the news. Times the G20 OECD Principles of Corporate Governance are the leading international standard for corporate governance. Times the principles underwent a comprehensive review in 2021 to 2023 to update them in light of recent evolutions in corporate governance and capital markets. 35 www. Times the revised principles were earlier adopted by the OECD Council at the ministerial level in June 2023. What is corporate governance? Times it is the system of rules, practices, and processes by which a company is directed and controlled. Times it essentially involves balancing the interests of the company's many stakeholders such as shareholders, management, customers, suppliers, financiers, government, and the community. Need for strong corporate governance framework. Times improves financial performance by implementing strong governance mechanisms to improve their overall operational efficiency, minimize risks, and make better informed decisions. Times build trust and confidence among individual and institutional investors, leading to more capital for companies. Times improves access to financing from capital markets and promote innovation, productivity and entrepreneurship. Times corporate governance failures can have wider economic impacts, particularly if they involve large companies or financial institutions. Times generates positive societal impact by aligning companies' business strategies with societal needs. Times fosters positive corporate culture through improved productivity and better teamwork. Challenges for corporate governance in India. Times lack of separation of ownership and management due to many companies being family-owned. Times lack of independent directors leading to issues like conflict of interest and lack of impartial evaluation and influence-free decision-making. Times low education and awareness among investors about corporate governance principles and their importance. Times limited scope of governance policies, with some being applicable to only listed companies. OEG, SABI has directed only the top 1,000 listed companies to publish annual business responsibility and sustainability which aim to link financial results with environmental, social and governance framework. Times lack of transparency in the operations of companies and incomplete disclosures, leading to difficulties in monitoring the effectiveness of corporate governance practices. Times fraudulent practices and financial irregularities, e.g., infrastructure leasing and financial services, IL&FS, scam of 2018. Times poor risk prediction and mitigation capabilities of companies and limited focus on sustainability parameters. Times limited participation of the minority shareholders and other stakeholders in the decision-making process. Framework of Corporate Governance in India. Times the Companies Act, 2013. The Act dictates the provisions in terms of board meetings, audit committees, disclosure requirements in financial statements, the constitution of the board, and related party transactions. Times Securities and Exchange Board of India, SABI. It is a regulatory authority responsible for monitoring and regulating the corporate governance of listed companies. Times the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, ICAI. It is responsible for issuing guidelines and standards, thereby directing the pathway of disclosing financial data. Times Institute of Company Secretaries of India, ICSE. It is responsible for issuing the secretarial standards primarily in terms of Board of Directors meetings and general meetings. Times Ministry of Corporate Affairs, for regulating the functioning of the corporate sector in accordance with law. 36W. Way forward, implementing revised G20 OECD principles of corporate governance. Category directives basis for an effective corporate governance framework. Times promote transparent and fair markets and the efficient allocation of resources. Times legal and regulatory requirements consistent with the rule of law, transparent and enforceable. Rights and equitable treatment of shareholders and key ownership functions. Times protect and facilitate the exercise of shareholders' rights. Times ensure the equitable treatment of all shareholders, including minority and foreign shareholders. Times effective redress for violation of shareholders' rights at a reasonable cost and without excessive delay. Institutional investors, stock markets, and other intermediaries. Times sound incentives throughout the investment chain. Times disclose and minimize conflicts of interest of entities professionals that provide analysis advice for investors, such as analysts, brokers, ESG rating and data providers, credit rating agencies, etc. Times fair and efficient price discovery in stock markets. Disclosure and transparency. Times timely and accurate disclosure on all material matters regarding the corporation, including the financial situation, performance, sustainability, ownership, and governance. Times disclosures in accordance with internationally recognized accounting and disclosure standards. Times annual external audit by an independent, competent and qualified auditor. Responsibilities of the board. Times strategic guidance of the company including proper risk management and maintaining high ethical standards. Times effective monitoring of management through identifying potential conflicts of interest. Conducting independent external audits, overseeing the process of disclosure and communications, etc. Times accountability to the company and the shareholders. Sustainability and resilience. Times incentives for companies and their investors to make decisions for the sustainability and resilience of the corporation. Times sustainability related disclosure frameworks consistent with high quality, understandable, enforceable, and internationally recognized standards. Times enable free dialogue between a company, its shareholders and stakeholders to exchange views on sustainability matters, illegal or unethical practices, etc. 3.4 Regulation of crypto assets. Why in the news? G20 countries adopted the New Delhi Leaders' Declaration which called for effective regulation of crypto assets. Crypto regulation in India. Times legal provision. At present, the exchange, transfer, safekeeping or administration of cryptocurrencies is under the ambit of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, PMLA, 2002. This would require all entities dealing with crypto to implement mandatory KYC processes, report suspicious activities, and require financial entities, crypto companies to maintain client details for 5 years. Times RBI stance. RBI has, on several occasions, voiced its concerns about crypto assets, saying that these assets threaten financial stability. 37 WWW. 2013, RBI issued a statement cautioning users, holders, and traders of virtual currencies, including cryptocurrencies, about the potential risks associated with their use. 2017, RBI cautioned users, holders and traders of virtual currencies, including bitcoins, regarding various risks associated in dealing with such virtual currencies. 2018, RBI issued a circular prohibiting banks and other regulated entities from providing services to individuals or businesses dealing in cryptocurrencies. The circular effectively made it illegal for Indian residents to buy or sell cryptocurrencies. 2020, the ban was overturned by the Supreme Court stating that it was disproportionate and that it violated the fundamental rights of citizens. This decision effectively legalized the use of cryptocurrencies in India and opened the door for their wider adoption. Times regulatory framework. In 2022, the Ministry of Finance released a report proposing the creation of a digital rupee, a state-backed cryptocurrency, as well as a framework for regulating private cryptocurrencies. The report also recommended the establishment of a Digital Currency Regulatory Authority, DCRA, to oversee the use of cryptocurrencies in India. Times tax regime. In 2022, the Union Budget, for the first time officially classified digital assets, including cryptocurrency, as virtual digital assets. In the proposed tax regime, the government has announced a flat 30% income tax on the transfer of crypto assets. The center also announced another 1% tax deducted at source, TDS. Challenges in regulating cryptocurrency. Times blanket ban. Blanket bans making crypto asset activities illegal can be costly and technically demanding to enforce. Circumvention can be achieved by many technology solutions due to the inherent borderless nature of crypto assets. This will result in heightened financial integrity risks and create inefficiencies. Times regulatory consistency. Achieving consistency in crypto regulations across different countries remains a complex task. Times lack of harmonized taxonomies. Different jurisdictions define and categorize crypto assets in various buckets, creating ambiguity in understanding the risks posed as well as a lack of clarity for market participants. Times fragmentation. Fragmented monitoring, supervision and enforcement due to a lack of coordination among various law enforcement agencies. Times balancing innovation and risk. Striking the right balance between fostering innovation and mitigating risks remains a delicate task. Times cross-border enforcement. Enforcing regulations in a global, decentralized ecosystem and different national priorities poses significant challenges. Global regulation of crypto assets. Times IMF FSB synthesis paper. In the recently concluded G20 summit, the countries endorsed the report by the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the Financial Stability Board, FSB, on risks and the framework for regulating crypto assets. This includes not banning the assets and creating reporting and licensing mechanisms for the regulation of digital assets by 2025. Times markets in crypto assets regulation, MiCA framed by the European Union, it is the first cross-jurisdictional regulatory and supervisory framework for crypto assets. To know more about MiCA, please refer to Article 3.6. Markets in Crypto Assets, MiCA, of April 2023 edition of Monthly Current Affairs magazine. Shaping global regulation of crypto assets. Times the IMF FSB synthesis paper on crypto assets was spearheaded by India. The paper highlighted potential systemic implications of crypto assets, cross-border challenges, and various regulatory approaches that can be adopted. Times advocacy for inclusive regulation. India advocated for regulatory approaches that promoted financial inclusion, especially for underserved populations. Times risk mitigation. India's leadership raised issues like money laundering and terrorist financing through crypto assets and called for the inclusion of such concerns in crypto regulation. 38 www.visionias. Times emerging markets and advanced economies. Both of these lag on regulatory development. Only 25% of the economies studied have regulations in place on taxation, AML-CFT, consumer protection, and licensing. Global regulatory approaches description principle-based regulation instead of prescribing detailed rules. This regulatory approach outlines the results and performance expected. Risk-based regulation. It works on the idea of intervention based on the associated level of risk. Agile regulation adopts a responsive, iterative approach, acknowledging that policy is no longer limited to governments but is a multi-stakeholder effort. Self and co-regulation. In self-regulation, industry representatives coordinate and collaborate to formulate voluntary standards or codes of conduct. In co-regulation, a non-governmental organization is formed by participants of a particular industry or sector to assist in the regulation of enterprises in that area with the oversight of the regulator. Regulation by enforcement. It indicates that enforcement actions are being used to define regulatory frameworks and making rules. Way forward for crypto regulation. Times implication policy linkage. Identifying implications of crypto assets and framing an adequate policy responses can be a way forward. See infographic. Times no outright ban. Blanket ban makes crypto-related activities like trading illegal and hence tough to monitor. Times license and supervision. Licensing of crypto assets service providers and supervising them in the same way as financial institutions. Times anti-money laundering. Once licensed and regulated, the service providers should implement measures like customer due diligence, record keeping and reporting of suspicious activities. 39 www.visionias.in. Times clarity on taxation. In addition to a clear tax policy that takes into consideration cross-border transactions, it should also leverage third-party information, especially from intermediaries such as crypto asset trading platforms, broker-dealers etc. to enhance tax compliance. The G20 nations have endorsed forming a framework like the Crypto Asset Reporting Framework, CARF, for cross-border data sharing for effective tax compliance. Times robust data framework. Authorities should have access to the data as necessary and appropriate to fulfill their regulatory, supervisory and oversight mandates. 3.5 Digital inclusion in emerging technologies. Why in the news? Recently, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, TRAI, has released a consultation paper on digital inclusion in the era of emerging technologies. More on news. Times. It aims to explore and address the challenges and opportunities presented by the rapid advancement of emerging technologies, with a focus on ensuring inclusivity for all segments of society and industries, particularly micro, small and medium enterprises, MSMEs. Importance of digital inclusion in emerging technology. Times extend job market. Digital technologies provide job opportunities for individuals, especially in fields like data science, data engineering, etc. As per the Future of Jobs Report 2023 by the World Economic Forum, data analysts and scientists are expected a 30 to 35% increase in demand. Times enhanced learning. Digital inclusion and online learning can bring down the cost of education, reduce the digital divide, etc. Technologies like augmented reality, AR, virtual reality, VR, have enabled students to visualize events and experiments, thus making the learning process more active, effective, and meaningful. Times Inclusive Workspace. Digital inclusion improves workplace participation and bridges the gap between employment opportunities for men, women, and disabled employees. This empowers disabled and female workers to transcend limitations tied to part-time or low-skilled positions. Times Better Pay Wages. Enhanced IT skills and digital inclusion boost individual earning potential in the workforce and significantly contribute to business innovation and overall workplace productivity in tech-savvy professions. Times Healthcare. Digital inclusion can improve the accessibility, affordability, and quality of healthcare. It can facilitate clinical support, map and monitor the spread of infectious diseases, as well as track supplies of drugs and vaccines. 40W. For example, teleconsultations through the eSanjeevani platform touched 1 million during the pandemic, highlighting the importance of digital inclusion in medicine. Times MSMEs. Emerging technologies that could be useful through the development of use cases for MSMEs include e-commerce, the Internet of Things, process automation, etc. Digital inclusion for micro, small and medium enterprises, MSMEs. Times benefits of digitalization for MSMEs or reduce manual effort, errors, and improve overall efficiency of MSMEs operations. Or increased reach of MSMEs through online platforms like e-commerce, websites, etc. to expand their customer base and increase sales. Or easy access to finance through digital lending platforms like online marketplaces and peer-to-peer lending platforms. Or efficient storing and managing data on customer. Times challenges faced by MSMEs, poor affordability of internet, building trust with online consumers and managing logistics, lack of knowledge and expertise to leverage digital technologies, etc. Times initiatives undertaken in India for MSMEs or Udyam registration portal, to register MSMEs businesses and access various government schemes, financial support, and resources. Or MSME Sampark, digital platform connecting job seekers with recruiters in the MSME sector. Or Champions, creation and harmonious application of modern processes for increasing output and national strength. Scheme, to promote use of modern technologies in MSMEs and provide them with necessary support to enhance their productivity and competitiveness. Or MSME Global Mart Platform, business to business, B2B, web portal, which helps MSMEs in market access through online presence by showcasing their products and services. Or Open Network for Digital Commerce, ONDC. ONDC aims to create new opportunities to curb digital monopolies and support MSMEs in their digitalization by enabling them to use digital commerce for their business operations. Challenges of digital inclusion in emerging technology. Times Access. The rapid pace of technological advancements and the high costs of adopting and utilizing emerging technologies can widen the digital divide, particularly for marginalized communities and underserved regions. Or in 2021, 49% of Indian adult men own smartphones, while only 26% of women did, revealing a gender disparity in ownership. Times Infrastructure. Lack of access and investment to 5G network and AI technologies could hinder the equitable deployment of emerging technologies, thus worsening the existing disparities in digital inclusion. Or lack of fiberization. The process of connecting radio towers with each other via optical fiber cables of mobile towers hampers the quality of internet access. Times Affordability. In India in 2022, the cost of the cheapest internet-enabled smartphone was 35.91% of the average monthly income. Times Limited digital literacy is a key barrier to digital inclusion in both developed and developing markets. Times Cyberattacks. Digital spaces can be misused and can act as a tool for online gender-based violence, stalking and bullying, spread of misinformation, phishing and hate speech. This creates barriers to connecting, engaging, and adopting emerging technologies. Initiatives taken. WRT Digital Inclusion in Emerging Technologies. Times for Digital Connectivity or Universal Service Obligation Fund, USOF, established under Indian Telegraph Act 1885 to provide support for affordable access to a reliable and ubiquitous telecom network to remote and rural areas. BharatNet project, formerly known as National Optical Fiber Network, aimed to connect all gram panchayats and villages in country by high-speed broadband connectivity using optical fiber cable. National Broadband Mission 2019, it aims to achieve availability of broadband connections and create digital fiber map of digital communications network and infrastructure, including optical fiber cables and towers throughout the country. Digital India program, its vision is centered around three key vision areas, i.e., digital infrastructure, e.g. high-speed internet, secure cyberspace, as a core utility to every citizen, governance and services on demand, digital empowerment of citizens, digital literacy. 41W. Times for Digital Affordability or National Policy on Electronics 2019, it promotes domestic manufacturing and export of electronic devices including smartphones, laptops, and tablets, and producing 1 billion mobile handsets by 2025. Design-linked incentive scheme, it offers financial incentives as well as design infrastructure support across various stages of development and deployment of semiconductor design, for integrated circuits, ICs, chipsets, etc. over a period of 5 years. Times for Digital Literacy or Pradhan Mantri Gramin Digital Sakshata Abhiyan, it aims to digitally literate 60 million people, 14 to 60 years age, from rural areas by training them to operate computer or digital access devices, tablets, smartphones, etc., send and receive emails, etc. Digital Skilling Program, it focuses on skilling, reskilling and upskilling students via internships, apprenticeships, and employment to 1 crore students in emerging technologies. Way forward. Times Policy Intervention, To ensure comprehensive digital inclusion, it is imperative to implement targeted policies to address gaps arising due to emerging technologies, focusing on digital literacy programs and affordable access to all sections of society. Times investment, public and private funding for high-speed internet infrastructure development is crucial for ensuring digital inclusion in unserved and underserved. The World Bank has estimated that a 10% increase in fixed broadband penetration would increase GDP growth by 1.21% and 1.38% in developed and developing economies respectively. Times tax rebates. It is essential to reduce mobile sector-specific taxes, like import duties, and fees discouraging internet usage and adoption of mobile devices, import duties. Times stakeholders collaboration. Government, telecom industry, multinational corporations, and non-governmental organizations must collaborate to address bureaucratic hurdles and develop strategies to facilitate digital inclusion and adoption of digital technologies by businesses. International practices for digital inclusion. Times Smart Nation Singapore program. Vision is Digital First Singapore, where digital government, digital economy and digital society will act as three pillars of a smart Singapore and harness technology to effect transformation in health, transport, urban living, government services and businesses. Times Affordable Connectivity Program, USA. It ensures that households can afford the broadband they need for work, school, healthcare and more. Related news, Generative AI, GAI, and Jobs. Times The International Labour Organization, ILO, released a paper titled Generative AI, GAI, and Jobs, Global Analysis of Potential Effects on Job Quality and Quantity. Times GAI is a branch of artificial intelligence that uses deep learning models like OpenAI's ChatGPT and Google's Bard to create high-quality content like text, speech, etc. Or it leverages advanced natural language processing to understand complex language structures. Times Key Observations. GAI is more likely to augment jobs as opposed to fully automating occupations. Share of jobs potentially exposed to automation with GAI grows with the income of the country. Poorly managed tech transition has gendered effects and can disproportionately harm women. Times Recommendations. Negotiation between employers and workers to encourage redeployment training over job loss. Instituting social protection and skills development programs. Enhancing job quality, training, and income support mitigates automation's gender effects. Bring regulation laws involving tripartite systems of workers, employers, and governments. 3.6 Managing food inflation in India. Why in the news? The Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations, ICRA, has estimated that banning cereal exports has cost farmers at least 45,000 rupees crore in 2023. 42W. Food inflation in India. Times Retail inflation was at 6.83% with food inflation at 9.2% in August 2023. It is measured by the Year-on-Year Consumer Price Index, CPI. The recent inflation is largely because of the impact of rising food prices, as food and beverages carry 45.9% weight in the CPI basket. Times major contributors to current food inflation include tomatoes, onions, cereals, wheat and rice, spices, and milk and dairy products. Wheat inflation is partly due to domestic factors like heat waves and unseasonal rains and partly a result of international price transmission due to issues like the Russia-Ukraine war. Government measures to manage food inflation. Times export restrictions. These include export ban, export duty and imposition of minimum export price, MEP. Some recent measures include imposition of the export ban on wheat, broken rice, and non-basmati rice, export duty of 20% on parboiled rice, and a 40% export duty levied on onions. Times stock limits. Imposition of stocking limits on wheat traders and millers. Times buffer stocks. The government maintains buffer stock and offloads from it under the Open Market Sales Scheme, OMSS. Times Food Security Scheme. Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana was launched to provide free food grains to more than 80 crore beneficiaries. Times direct support to farmers. Support is provided through subsidies, income support and procurement at minimum support price, MSP. Times supply side measures, improving agricultural productivity, marketing, strategic reserves, promoting diversification and value addition. 43W. Concerns with the current food inflation management system. Times loss of farmers' income. Measures to contain food inflation such as export ban, OMSS and imposition of stock limits results in a collective loss of farmers' income. Times policy bias. Adoption of such market distorting policy measures indicates a bias in favor of consumers, compared to farmers, i.e., producers, in India's food price policy. Times indirect tax burden on farmers. A prior research by ICRA and OECD showed that between January 2000 and 2016 to 17, Indian farmers carried a substantial indirect tax burden amounting to 2 rupees and 65 paise lakh crores annually. Times dumping effect. The combination of an export ban and the government selling wheat in the open market at prices below the MSP guaranteed to farmers has been argued to be tantamount to dumping within India by the government itself. Dumping refers to a situation of where the price of a product in the importing country is less than the price of that product in the exporting country. Times global ramifications. India is the largest rice exporter, accounting for around 40% of the global share. India's export ban on rice affects global prices. Such sudden policy shifts endanger global food security and undermine India's reputation as a reliable exporter. How to best manage food inflation without adverse effects. Times calibrated trade policy. Instead of a protectionist trade policy, Trade policy can be calibrated to control rising inflation with measures such as a timely reduction in import duty. Times buffer stocks. Government should build buffer stocks for volatile vegetable staples like tomato, onion, potato, during the harvest season. This will help farmers realize stable prices in the glut period. The stocks can be systematically released over the lean period, or during the festive season when demand is high, to cool down the prices. Times income support to farmers. Government can increase its amount of income transferred to farmers under PM Kisan from 6,000 rupees to 10,000 rupees a year to offset the potential income losses. Times development of food processing. Processed food can provide a viable substitute for consumers during price pressure on fresh produce. Times research and development. R&D increase investment in R&D from current 0.48% of agriculture GDP in order to augment productivity. It can be directed to areas like innovative farming practices and drought-resisting seed varieties, adaptive to these changing conditions. Times increasing irrigation. Irrigation coverage can be increased by expanding micro-irrigation infrastructure including soil moisture sensors and drip irrigations. 3.7 Digitization of agriculture. Why in the news? The G20 Delhi Declaration has committed to promote responsible, sustainable and inclusive use of digital technology by farmers and an ecosystem of agritech startups and MSMEs. About digitization of agriculture. Times it is integration of cutting-edge digital technologies into the farm production system, including artificial intelligence, AI, robotics, unmanned aviation systems, sensors, and communication networks is referred as digitization of agriculture. Times significance of digitization of agriculture across the agricultural value chain, input supply, helps to optimize the input resources like fertilizers, pesticides, water etc. at the right time. X. Use of AI with agricultural data. 44W. Production, increases operational efficiency and decreases production cost of farming due to reduced manpower requirement and labor hours. X. Submission on agricultural mechanization, SMAM. Trading, right price for the produce is obtained by elimination of middlemen thereby increasing the profitability. X. ENAM. Warehousing, aids scientific decision making in farming activities, which will reduce burdens of crop loss or failure, low yield, pest attack etc. X. Improved governance, better agriculture governance, by using agriculture data gathered across the country for the welfare of farmers and citizens. X. National E-Governance Plan in Agriculture, NEJ. India Digital Ecosystem of Agriculture, IDEA, Framework. Social benefit, bridges the gender gap, through promotion of women-centric innovations enabling them to involve in agricultural activities at par with males. X. PM Kisan mobile app. Challenges in digitization of agriculture in India. Times digital illiteracy makes the farmers shy away from trying new generation technologies in agriculture. In addition, the recent increase in digital fraud cases using mobile devices has affected the trust in digital mode. Times lack of awareness about the schemes and subsidies provided by the government to make use of digital technologies. Times capital requirement is high at the initial stages and makes it difficult for a small and marginal farmer to acquire them. 45 Times fragmented landholdings is a major concern for digitization as it make the scalability of a technology difficult. As per the latest agriculture census, the average size of operational holdings has decreased from 2.28 hectares in 1970 to 71 to 1.08 hectares in 2015 to 16. Times fear of unemployment as the automation would reduce the number of manpower required for the process. Times nascent stage of agritech startups and they find it difficult to get funding as well as a reliable customer base. Presently, there is only 1% agritech startup penetration in India, as per EY India. Times lack of infrastructure in rural areas like access to electricity, internet, service centers for the machineries etc. Times limitations of available the products like lack of content in regional languages, user-friendly interface, inadequate farm and farmer level datasets etc. Way forward. Times improving the access to innovative products to the farmers by educating them and providing finances to acquire the same. Times focusing on producing technologies at affordable cost, which enables the farmers to acquire them. Times portable hardware models needs to be focused as small, plug-and-play hardware, which can be commonly shared among a group of farmers. Times bridging the gap between field and academic institutes for them to better understand the ground-level issues faced by the farmers and work towards them. Times arrangement of better financing options and incubation centers for the agritech startups for them to stabilize and sustain. Latest initiatives in digitization of agriculture. Times Unified Portal for Agricultural Statistics, UPAG, is an advanced agricultural data management platform designed to generate crop estimates and integrate with other systems generating agriculture statistics such as price, trade, procurement, stock etc. Times the Kisan Rin Portal, KRP, offers a comprehensive view of farmer data, loan disbursement specifics, interest subvention claims, and fosters seamless integration with banks for more focused and efficient agriculture credit. Times Weather Information Network Data Systems, WINS, Manual, leverages advanced weather data analytics to provide stakeholders with actionable insights on weather and empowers farmers, policymakers, and various agricultural entities to make well-informed choices. Times YesTech is a technology-driven yield estimation system, offering methodologies, best practices, and integration insights for accurate yield assessments at the Gram Panchayat level. Times National E-Governance Plan in Agriculture, NEJ, a centrally sponsored scheme under Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers' Welfare, aims to achieve rapid development in India through use of modern technologies in agriculture. 3.8 National Logistics Policy, NLP. Why in the news? India recently marked the first year anniversary of the National Logistics Policy, NLP. 40. About National Logistics Policy, NLP. Times NLP was introduced in September 2022 to promote seamless flow of goods across the country and improve Indian goods competitiveness in domestic as well as global markets. Times vision, to drive economic growth through an integrated, seamless, efficient, reliable, green, sustainable and cost-effective logistics network by leveraging best-in-class technology, processes and skilled manpower. Times targets of NLP. Or reduce cost of logistics in India to global benchmarks by 2030. Or improve the Logistics Performance Index ranking and be among top 25 countries by 2030. Or create data-driven decision support mechanism for an logistics ecosystem. Times implementation of the National Logistics Policy through a comprehensive logistics action plan, CLAP, which consists of interventions divided into specific action areas including progress under NLP so far. Components description progress digitalization times use of Unified Logistics Interface Platform, ULIP, the data-based platform which integrates 34 logistics-related digital systems including GST data, across departments. Times over 614 industry players have registered on ULIP. Times 106 private companies have signed non-disclosure agreements, NDAs. Export-import, EXIM, logistics. Times a comprehensive port connectivity plan was developed to address last and first mile infrastructure gaps under it. Times 60 projects of Ministry of Road Transport and Highways and 47 Ministry of Railways. 47 www. have been sanctioned to improve last mile connectivity to ports. State engagement times to bring holistic focus on logistics in public policy at state level. States duties are developing state logistics plans, SLPs, aligned with NLP. Times 22 states have notified their logistics policies so far. Issues and grievance redressal. Times ease of logistics services, e-logs, portal aims to use technology platforms to improve good governance and stakeholder outreach in the logistics sector. Times around 29 business associations have been impaneled so far. Challenges in NLP. Times fragmented logistics sector in India and lack of integrated digital logistics systems. OX, unorganized players control 90% of the market. Times lack of logistics standardization which results in difficulty in interoperability, raises handling risks and leads to delays. Times lack of skilled workforce in the logistics sector. The logistics sector is a labor-intensive sector that employs nearly 22 million people and of these, only 4.7% are formally skilled. Times lack of coordination between states in logistics leading to delays in shipments and increased costs. Times lack of acceptance of digital technologies by transporters due to issues of digital literacy and anti-competitive practices by transport unions. Times limited alternatives to first and last mile connectivity. Way forward. Times implementation of roadmap and monitoring through a thorough study on gap assessment across sectors and creation of a workable solution with regular monitoring. Times addressing infrastructure and procedural gaps in India's export-import, EXIM, connectivity and create efficient and reliable logistics network. Times improving regulatory interface to enable seamlessness between sectors, promote standardization, formalization and interoperability. Times develop sectoral plans for efficient logistics, SPEL, aligned with PM Gati Shakti for each sector with underlying philosophies of interoperability, resiliency, sustainability. Times better state engagement by providing support for development of state and city level logistics plans and set up institutional framework for the same. Role of states in logistic policy implementation. Times to create a dedicated agency for the development of logistics in the state and provide better coordination between departments for providing single window clearances. Times to identify local logistics infrastructure requirement for creation of logistics zone, warehouses, expressways etc. to achieve last mile connectivity. Times to create quality storage facilities according to the landscape and local industrial requirements. Times to provide impetus to the industries in the form of subsidies like capital interest subsidy, stamp duty subsidy, etc. Times to integrate quality data from various states' master plan for better and wider adoption of logistic policy initiatives like PM Gati Shakti. Times to enable area-based development and for gap identification, project planning, etc. at grassroots level. 3.9 Inland waterways. Why in the news? Recently, the Standing Committee on Transport, Tourism and Culture submitted its report on development and expansion of existing and new national inland waterways. 48 www. Inland water transport. Times inland water transport, IWT, is a fuel-efficient, environment-friendly and cost-effective mode of transport. Times India has about 14,500 kilometers of navigable waterways comprising rivers, canals, backwaters, creeks, etc. Times as per constitutional provisions, only those waterways which are declared as national waterways come under the purview of the central government while the rest of the waterways remain in the purview of the respective state government. Importance of inland water transport. Times cost savings. The cost of developing waterways is much lower than rail and road. IWT thus can reduce logistics costs, which amounts to approximately 13 to 14% of GDP in India. Global average 8%. Times environment friendly. Or least fuel consumption per ton kilometer. CO2 emission is 50% that of trucks. or safe mode for hazardous and over-dimensional cargo. Times strategic importance. The northeastern region, which is strategically and economically important, had to face connectivity hurdles with mainland India due to poor conditions of roads. IWT system offers natural navigation channels connecting the entire region. Times supplementary mode or reduces pressure on road and rail, or reduces congestion and accidents on the road. Times tourism and recreation. Inland waterways can be used for tourism and recreation, attracting tourists and generating income for local communities through activities such as boating, fishing, and sightseeing. Issues associated with the development of IWT. Times unviability of projects. Of the 111 notified national waterways, 23 have been made operational, or the development of 63 national waterways is not being taken up due to financial and staffing constraints. Times low level of investment compared to road and rail modes. Key factors discourage companies from shifting to inland waterways are or the slow pace of development of waterways or poor hinterland connectivity, or high vessel and equipment costs. Times least available depth. LAD maintaining a depth of the river which is navigable for vessels with a capacity of 1,500-2,000 tons is a challenge. Times impact on the environment. While inland waterways have a low environmental impact during operations, their development alters the ecology of the river. 49W. For instance, dredging and construction on the national waterway disrupted the activities of Gangetic Dolphin. Times high cost of development of ancillary facilities, like multimodal terminals, jetties, and river information systems. Times lack of convergence between IWT and other modes of transport. Times recurring siltage and irregular siltation. Times clearance at cross structures, bridges. Steps taken for inland water transport. Times development of national waterways. NWs for the development of inland water transport. IWT, 111 waterways, including 5 existing and 106 new, spread over 24 states have been declared NWs under the National Waterways Act, 2016. Times Jalmarg Vikas Project, JMVP, for capacity augmentation of navigation on NW1 is being implemented with the technical assistance and investment support of the World Bank. Times RoRo, roll-on roll-off, and RoPaksh, roll-on roll-off with passenger, ferry service commenced in various national waterways, such as between Nayanti and Kamlabri, Majuli, Guwahati and North Guwahati, etc. Times revision of levy and collection of fees, including the proposal to waive waterway user charges initially for a period of 3 years. Times digital solutions for ease of doing business, such as OCardi, Cargo Data Portal is a web-based portal for collecting, compiling, analyzing, and disseminating all cargo and cruise movement data of national waterways to the stakeholders. OPani, portal for asset and navigation information, integrates river navigation and infrastructure information on a single platform. Times enhanced regional trade using IWT mode, or addition of new ports of call and routes in under Indo-Bangladesh Protocol on inland water transit and trade. Or stone exporters from Bhutan have identified inland waterways as an alternate mode of transportation. Times IWT under Maritime India Vision 2030. The following focus areas have been identified under the vision. Or enhancement and development of infrastructure at 23 priority NWs. Or development of terminal infrastructure for RoRo and ferry services. Times IWT under Blue Economy Vision 2047. Initiatives under the vision are, or enhance regional connectivity through waterways with Bangladesh, Nepal, Myanmar and Bhutan known as Regional Waterway Grid, RWG. Times flagging off of the world's longest river cruise, MV Ganga Vilas. Way forward. Times financial incentives, provide financial incentives and subsidies to encourage industries to shift their cargo transportation to inland waterways. Times public-private partnership, active involvement of the private sector in the inland waterways sector is imperative to ensure greater efficiency and competitiveness and attract higher investment for infrastructure development. Times waterway connectivity, IWAI may ensure that the connectivity to rail, road and ports be comprehensively dealt with in the detailed project report, DPR, itself. Times environmental considerations, research and development studies should be conducted to make an assessment of the impact of the increased inland water transport activities on aquamarine life. Times international collaboration, collaborate with neighboring countries on the development of transboundary waterways, facilitating regional trade and connectivity. Times promote river cruise, the government should launch programs to incentivize river cruise operators so that the available potential can be fully realized. Important national water 50 www.visionias www.visionias.info 50 Important national waterways. Times National Waterway 1, Ganga Bhagirathi Hooghly River System, Haldia, Allahabad. Times National Waterway 2, Brahmaputra River, Dhubri, Sadia. Times National Waterway 3, West Coast Canal, Kottapuram, Kollam, Champakara and Udyogmandal Canals. Times National Waterway 4, Krishna River, Vijayawada Mukchila. Times National Waterway 5, Dhamraparadio via Mangalgauri to Pankopal. 50 www.vision 3.10 PM Vishwakarma Scheme. Why in the news? Recently, Prime Minister launched PM Vishwakarma scheme for traditional artisans and craftspeople on occasion of Vishwakarma Jayanti. About PM Vishwakarma scheme, it envisages to provide end-to-end holistic support to the traditional artisans and craftspeople in scaling up of their conventional products and services. Times objective, or to enable recognition of artisans and craftspeople as Vishwakarmas, or to provide incentives for digital transactions to encourage digital empowerment of Vishwakarmas, or to provide a platform for brand promotion and market linkages to help them access new opportunities for growth. Times type, central sector scheme. Times duration, FY 2023 to 24 to FY 2027 to 28. Times nodal ministry, Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprise, MoMSME. Times scheme will be jointly administered by MoMSME, the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, MSDE, and the Department of Financial Services, DFS, under the Ministry of Finance. Times registration, free of charge through common services centers using a biometric-based PM Vishwakarma portal. Times recognition, artisans and craftspeople will be provided recognition through the PM Vishwakarma certificate and ID card. Times approach, strengthen and nurture the Guru Shishya Parampara or family-based practice of traditional skills. Or rolled out in rural and urban areas with a focus on saturating districts in a phased manner. Times eligibility criteria, an artisan or craftsperson working with hands and tools and engaged in one of the recognized 18 family-based traditional trades with minimum age of 18 years. Beneficiary should not have a 51 www.visionias.in 51 beneficiary should not have availed loans under similar credit-based schemes of central government or state government for self-employment business development, e.g. PMEGP, PMSVNIGLI, Mudra, in the past 5 years. Government employee and their family members not eligible. 51 www. Benefits under the scheme shall be restricted to one member of the family. Under the scheme, a family is defined as consisting of the husband, wife and unmarried children. Times required documents or information, like Aadhaar, mobile number, bank details, ration card. Times lending institutions, scheduled commercial banks, regional rural banks, small finance banks, cooperative banks, NBFCs and microfinance institutions. Benefits of scheme. Times marketing support, National Committee for Marketing, NCM, will provide services such as quality certification, branding and promotion, e-commerce linkage, trade fairs advertising, publicity and other marketing activities. Times cheap credit, credit support will rejuvenate sector. Collateral-free enterprise development loans, rupees 1 lakh, first tranche for 18 months repayment, and 2 rupees lakh, second tranche for 30 months repayment. Concessional rate of interest, 5% to be charged from the beneficiary with interest subvention cap of 8% to be paid by MoMSME. Credit guarantee fees to be borne by GOI. Times skill upgradation, basic training of 5 to 7 days and advanced training of 15 days or more, with a stipend of 500 rupees per day. Times creating a holistic support ecosystem, provisions such as incentives for digital transactions and marketing support, liberal loan terms, etc. will help to develop a supporting ecosystem for this industry. Incentive for digital transaction, 1 rupee per transaction for maximum up to 100 transactions, monthly. Times preserving traditions, the scheme encapsulates the essence of preserving heritage while embracing progress. Times promote gender justice and social justice. As per the census of crafts conducted during the 7th plan period, there were more than 68.8 lakh craftspersons in the country. Women, 56.13%, and socially and economically disadvantaged sections like SC, CENT and OBC, which together make up more than 72%, account for a majority of the pool. Concern raised. Times available data on the crafts landscape is outdated. The last census of crafts was carried out during the 7th plan period, which ended in 2012. Times caste-based occupations, there is concern that the scheme may inadvertently reinforce caste-based occupations, limiting the opportunities for community members to explore more lucrative professions. Times non-recognition of Guru, Master, as trainer, under Guru Shishya Parampara, the master used to provide valuable training, which he has learned from his experiences to new employee remain unrecognized as formal training under the scheme. Times silent on wages, low wages causing the gradual erosion of artisan communities. Times lack of economic viability, due to poor market coverage and quality concerns product often gets lower price tag causing a lack of economic viability for their output. Way forward. Times standards and certification, it will help tackle the multiplicity of non-tariff barriers that impede access to global markets for traditional crafts and help artisans realize better value for their work. Times new markets, linking traditional artisans with modern techniques can help open up new markets both at home and abroad, much as it has done for the handloom sector. Times addressing root causes of poverty and inequality among artisan communities with such as limited access to education and employment opportunities. Other such initiatives for artisans. Times National Handicraft Development Program, NHDP, by the Ministry of Textiles which provides supports to the handicraft clusters and artisans. Times Comprehensive Handicrafts Cluster Development Scheme, CHCDS, by the Ministry of Textiles which aims to mobilize the artisans into self-help groups, thrift and credit, training of SHGs for community business enterprise. Times Pehchan Scheme by the Ministry of Textiles, to provide a new identity to handicraft artisans so that the benefits of various schemes are provided to the deserving artisans. Times other schemes, upgrading the skills and training in traditional arts crafts for development, USTAD, Scheme of Fund for Regeneration of Traditional Industries, SFRT, etc. 52 WW 3.11 News in Shorts. 3rd November 2001 for at G20 Sustainable Finance Working Group, SFWG, meeting. Times G20 SFWG aims to mobilize sustainable finance to help ensure global growth and stability, and promote the transition towards greener, more resilient, and inclusive societies and economies. G20 Sustainable Finance Roadmap, as finalized in 2021, is the core around which SFWG functions. Times SFWG during India's G20 presidency has identified challenges and made recommendations on several areas including areas challenges recommendations mobilization of adequate resources for climate finance. Times lack of clear and predictable public climate policy and regulatory frameworks. Times capital flows to climate investments are often constrained by lack of investment-ready or bankable projects. Times policy and regulatory frameworks conducive to climate-related bankable projects. Times encouraging philanthropic foundations to align with multilateral development banks, MDBs, development finance institutions, DFIs, etc. Times apply active risk management approaches to climate projects to mitigate risks to investors. Rapid development and deployment of green and low-carbon technologies. Times limited data and scalability of climate technology accelerators and incubators. Times uneven and uncertain domestic policy and regulatory environments. Times governments should provide clarity over their long-term policy pathway towards carbon neutrality and climate adaptation. Times incentivize corporate investments in R&D for climate innovation, climate technology startups, etc. 3rd November 2002 of budget borrowings. Times Center for Social and Economic Progress, CSEP, recently released a report on off-budget borrowings, OBB, by Indian governments. Times OBBs refer to borrowings that are not reflected in the budget, even though budgetary resources will have to be used for their repayment. Thus, OBB is not part of the calculation of the fiscal indicators despite fiscal implications. Times OBBs are taken not by government directly but by another public institution on its direction. For example, loan by FCI for paying food subsidy bill, this practice is discontinued from FY 2020 to 21. Times reasons for resorting to OBB. Bypass fiscal deficit targets under the FRBM Act, 2003, avoid borrowing limits under Article 293(3) of the Constitution. Article mandates states to take consent of the center before raising any loan if they have any outstanding loan to the center or loans where the center is the guarantor. Avoid delay in central grants, or reduction in other sources of revenue. Times ways of OBB, national savings schemes government fully serviced bond, domestic foreign market borrowings, etc. 3rd November 2003 RBI's Financial Inclusion Index rises. Times RBI's Financial Inclusion, FI, Index shows growth across all segments. The FI was 60.1% for March 2023, as compared to 56.4% in March 2022 and 43.4% during its pilot in March 2017. Times the index captures the extent of FI across the country by including details of banking, investments, insurance, postal as well as the pension sector. It ranges between 0, complete financial exclusion, and 100, complete financial inclusion, and has been constructed without any base year. 53WW. It tracks 97 indicators and divides them into 3 sub-indices, namely, access, 35% weightage, usage, 45%, and equality, 20%. Times FI refers to the process of ensuring that all individuals and 53 marginalized populations have access to affordable and appropriate financial services. Times significance of FI, promotes economic and sustainable growth, helps to reduce poverty and inequality in the society, empowers 53 marginalized sections of the society, induces innovation and promotes small businesses. Times challenges in ensuring FI. Inadequate infrastructure in rural areas like bank branches and ATMs. Financial illiteracy. Procedural complications like filling of forms, etc. Hidden charges imposed force marginal people out of the formal system. 3rd November 2004 Household financial savings. Times according to RBI data, India's household savings have touched decadal lows of 5.1% in floor Y23. Times household savings are looked at by subtracting aggregate financial liabilities from total financial assets. Liabilities include loans from banks, NBFCs, among others. Assets comprise deposits with banks and other financial institutions, life insurance, provident funds, currency and other investments. Times importance of household savings, one of the principal means for financing the fiscal deficit, provides capital for investment, reduce dependence on foreign capital to fund growth, etc. 3rd November 2005 Monetary Policy Transmission, MPT. Times according to a SBI report, monetary policy has asymmetric transmission in Indian financial markets. Times monetary policy transmission, MPT, is the process through which policy action of the central bank is transmitted to meet the ultimate objectives of inflation and growth. Changes to monetary policy affect interest rates in the economy, which in turn affect economic activity and inflation. Therefore, transmission of a rate change should be instantaneous. Instant transmission also enhances the credibility of the central bank. To improve the transmission, RBI introduced marginal cost of funds-based lending rate, MCLR, system in 2016. Times MPT is said to be asymmetric transmission if the economy does not show positive relationship with changes in monetary policy. For instance, 1% increase in repo rate has resulted in only 2 to 3 basis points increase in 10-year AA corporate bond spread. 3rd November 2006 Basel III Capital Framework. Times Reserve Bank of India, RBI, introduced the Basel III Capital Framework for all India financial institutions, AIFIs. Times exercising power under Section 45L of the RBI, 1934, RBI has mandated AIFIs to maintain a capital adequacy ratio, CAR, of 9% by April 2024, July 2024 for NHB, It was done as AIFIs are being seen as key institutions to promote the flow of credit to economic sectors they cater to. 54 www.times about Basel III norms. Basel III norms were adopted by financial regulators to improve the banking sector's ability to absorb shocks arising from financial and economic stress. It was developed by Basel Committee on Banking Supervision in the aftermath of the financial crisis of August 2007. It mandates banks to maintain a CAR or capital to risk-weighted assets, CRAR, at least 8%. CRAR is a ratio that compares the value of a bank's capital, or net worth, against the value of its various assets weighted according to risk. RBI mandates banks to maintain a minimum CAR of 9%. 3rd November 2007 Liquidity deficit in the banking system. Times liquidity deficit in the banking system widened to 1 rupee and 46 paise trillion, highest since 2019. Times liquidity is a measure of cash and other assets banks, available to pay bills and meet short-term business and financial obligations, e.g., usually consisting of central bank reserves and government bonds. RBI controls liquidity in banking system through a liquidity adjustment facility, LAF. LAF is operated through repo auctions, for absorption of liquidity, and reverse repo auctions, for injection of liquidity. Additional instruments for liquidity management, marginal standing facility, statutory liquidity ratio, etc. Times in banking system liquidity deficit, LD, means banks do not have sufficient funds for credit demands by customers. Times reasons behind LD. Implementation of incremental cash reserve ratio, ICRR. RBI mandated banks to set aside an additional 10% net demand and time liabilities to absorb surplus liquidity. Payments of advance tax and GST by businesses, hence shift of liquidity away from banking sector. Other, selling of dollars by RBI, increase in credit demand due to the festive season, etc. Times implication of LD. Rise in interest rates for consumers. Rise in rates of treasury bills repurchase, overnight call money rates, etc. Less availability of credit for developmental activities. 3rd November 2008 Indian Post Payment Bank, IPPB. Times recently the IPPB completed 5 years. Times in 2018, IPPB was established under the Department of Posts, Ministry of Communication with 100% equity owned by the Government of India. Vision, build the most accessible, affordable and trusted bank for the common man in India. Mandate, spearheading financial inclusion by removing barriers and reducing costs for accessing banking services. Times IPPB is registered under the Banking Regulation Act, 1949 duly licensed by RBI to carry on the business of payments bank in India. It is a scheduled payment bank offering range of products like savings and current accounts, remittances and money transfer, Aadhaar-enabled payment system etc. It offers 3 accounts, Safal, regular account, Sugam, basic savings bank deposit account, BSBADA, and Saral, BSBADA small. Times achievements of IPPB. More than 6 crore accounts have been opened across country including 96 lakh in aspirational districts. 55 www. 1.90 lakh postmen and Gramin Dak Sevaks have been equipped with smartphones and biometric devices. 1.55 lakh banking access points through post offices network pan-India. Times challenges, competition from private companies, low financial literacy and poor infrastructure in rural areas etc. 3rd November 2009 Gresham's Law. Times it states that, in a fixed exchange rate system, bad money drives out good. Times it comes into play when exchange rate between two currencies is fixed by government at a certain ratio that is different from market exchange rate. It causes undervalued currency to go out of circulation. Overvalued currency remains in circulation but it does not find enough buyers. Times it applies not just to paper currencies but also to commodity currencies and other goods. Times law, named after English financier Thomas Gresham, came into play recently during Sri Lanka crisis. 3rd November 2010 Overnight Index Swap, OIS. Times Indian OIS rates rose to their highest levels in last 10 months. Times an OIS is an interest rate derivative contract in which two entities agree to swap exchange a fixed interest rate payment, OIS rate, for a floating interest rate payment. OIS is also considered a measure of monetary policy expectation. Times floating rate is usually overnight interbank rate. Reference rate for Indian OIS contracts is Mumbai Interbank Outright Rate, MIBOR. Times benefits of OIS, hedging interest rate risks, reduction of credit risk, effective management of debt portfolios by financial institutions etc. 3rd November 2011 Debt Market. Times SBI eases norms for large corporates, LCs, tapping the debt market. Times move will aid investors such as insurers, pension and provident funds which are required to invest a particular percentage of their incremental receipts in corporate bonds and would facilitate ease of compliance for LCs. Times measures proposed by SBI includes, higher monetary threshold for defining LCs, removal of penalty on LCs which are not able to raise a certain percentage of borrowing from debt market. Times debt market is the market where fixed income securities of various types and features are issued and traded. It includes government securities, G-SECs, the largest component, and bonds issued by public sector undertakings, other government bodies, financial institutions, banks and companies. Types of debt instruments, bonds, debentures, commercial papers, certificates of deposit, G-SECs etc. 3rd November 2012 PLI scheme for automobile and auto components. Times Production Linked Incentive, PLI, scheme for automobile and auto components extended for another year to 2027 to 28. Times the government has also decided to disburse the incentives on a quarterly basis, instead of annual plan. Times about PLI scheme for automobile and auto component industry, PLI Auto, Nodal Ministry, Ministry of Heavy Industries, MHI, purpose, to drive supply chain of advanced automotive technology, ART, products, vehicles and components. 56 WW, base year, by for calculation of eligible sales for incentive is 2019 to 20. Conditions for incentive, minimum 50% domestic value addition. Effect on eligibility under FAME 2, incentive payable under this scheme to electric vehicle, EV, manufacturers is in addition to the incentives given under FAME 2 scheme. Project Management Agency, IFCI Limited, IFCI, a non-banking finance company in the public sector. Achievements 95 companies have been admitted under the scheme. Investment, till 30th June 2023, is 10,755 rupees crore out of the total outlay of 67,690 rupees crore in the next 5 years. Times government aims to increase the contribution of automobile sector to India's GDP to 12%, currently 7.1%, and employment generation to 50 million, currently 37 million. 3rd November 2013 Technical Textiles, TTS. Times Ministry of Textiles, MoT, approved startup guidelines for research and entrepreneurship across aspiring innovators in technical textiles, great. Times key highlights aim, developing the startup ecosystem in technical textiles, TTs, focus, niche subsegments such as biodegradable and sustainable textiles, high performance and specialty fibers, smart textiles, etc. Financial aid, grant in aid to support individuals and companies to translate prototypes into technologies and products and commercialize them. Startups will get grant in aid up to 50 rupees lakhs for up to a period of 18 months. Incubator will get an additional 10% of total grant in aid support to premier institutes. IIT Delhi, NIFT Mumbai among others got approval for upgrading laboratory infrastructure and introduction of new degree programs in TTs. Times TTs are engineered textile materials and products used primarily for their technical performance and functional properties rather than aesthetic and decorative features. TTs are broadly classified into 12 different categories including agrotech, orcotech, buildtech, meditech, geotech, etc. 3rd November 2014 Report on Emerging Technology Hubs of India. Times as per Deloitte and NASSCOM report, India's IT industry is moving to new cities from 7 major hubs including metropolitan hubs. Times the technology industry is decentralizing to 26 cities with representation from Tier 2 and Tier 3 towns, Chandigarh, Kanpur, Ahmedabad, etc. as well. Times key findings. A majority of 5.4 million people employed in technology industry have clustered around 7 major cities of Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad and Pune. 60% of graduates come from smaller cities in key fields and 30% of whom relocate to Tier 1 cities for employment after graduation. Times why are IT companies moving operations to emerging hubs? Or rising cost of operations in major hubs, 60 to 80% increase in real estate cost. Or better access to skilled talent pool at lower cost. Presently, 11-15% of tech talent is based in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. Or rapid development of infrastructure, skill diversity, startup presence, and governmental initiatives such as smart cities, tech parks, and incubation centers. Or growing proliferation of startups and incubators in emerging hubs. 39% of tech startups established in 2022 are from emerging hubs. 57 WW, 3rd November 2015 E-commerce for the growth of MSMEs. Times the India Council for Research on International Economic Relations, ICRIA, has released its annual survey on MSMEs, focusing on the leverage of e-commerce for the growth of micro, small and medium enterprises, MSMEs. Established in 1981, ICRIA is one of India's premier economic think tanks with the goal of providing policy advice to effectively deal with external economic shocks. Times MSMEs in India. Around 19.3 million MSMEs which employ around 131.04 million individuals are registered on the UGM portal. UGM portal provides MSMEs with a permanent registration and basic identification number. Share on UGM portal of micro, small and medium enterprises. Type share micro 96.2%, small 3.4%, medium 0.4%. Or 27% of the MSMEs are engaged in manufacturing and 73% are in services. Times challenges in integrating with e-commerce sites, or lack of knowledge and digital illiteracy, or lack of digital infrastructure, or lack of access to skilled labor. Times significance of e-commerce integration, or successful integration with e-commerce platform have reported an increase in sales, or integrated firms report higher turnovers and profitability, or integrated firms have a higher share of permanent employees. 3rd November 2016 India is running out of phosphorus. Times phosphorus is one of the macronutrients essential for plant growth which is required by plants for photosynthesis process, energy transfer and nutrient movement within the plant, strong root development, transfer of genetic characteristics. Times India is the world's largest importer of phosphorus, most of it from the cadmium-laden deposits of West Africa. Phosphate rocks are majorly produced only from 2 states in India, namely Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. Some deposits are also present in the central part of peninsular India, Lalitpur, Uttar Pradesh, Mussoorie syncline, and Kudappa basin, Andhra Pradesh. Times concerns with phosphorus availability. At most places, phosphorus coexists with cadmium, a heavy metal whose removal is expensive. A handful of countries such as Morocco, Western Sahara, China, Algeria etc. control most of the world's reserves of phosphorus, which is a major geopolitical concern. Times harmful effects of phosphorus. Much of phosphorus is lost directly to water bodies as agricultural runoff and through sewage, which leads to growth of toxic algal blooms. Cadmium-laden fertilizers are often applied to the soil, absorbed by crops, and consumed, bioaccumulating in human bodies, accelerating heart disease. 58 WW, 3rd November 2017 Asian Premium. Times according to reports, Saudi Arabia has slashed the premium charged on oil exports to India after India began sourcing oil requirements from Russia at deep discounts. Saudi Arabia has now reduced the premium to $3.5 per barrel from around $10 in the last year. Times Asian premium is an extra charge being collected by OPEC countries from Asian countries when selling oil in comparison to Western countries. The practice dates back to the 1980s. Times reasons identified for the existence of Asian premium. Asian countries, dependent heavily on oil imports, were essentially price takers. Thus, the oil exporters used their superior bargaining power to squeeze Asian oil importers while charging less to their American and European customers. Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states supply a relatively high level of oil exports to the US and Europe to maintain military and political support. This implies that the Asian premium is effectively a North Atlantic discount. Times India has repeatedly pressed oil producers to eliminate this premium and even asked for an Asian discount instead. Times also, India has been diversifying import sources and securing cheaper oil. 3rd November 2018 Dedicated coal corridors. Times according to the Railway Board, dedicated coal corridors, DCC, needed to meet power demand. Times DCC can be referred to as high-capacity railway corridor that is exclusively meant for transportation of coal across country. It will be laid down on a line of dedicated freight corridors. DCC would be exclusively for coal transportation from Odisha, Jharkhand, and Chhattisgarh to other parts of country. Times need of DCC, volume, coal traffic to thermal power plants constitutes highest in the rail freight traffic, both in terms of capacity and revenues. Highly congested rail networks cause significant delays in coal transportation. Cost. Majority of India's coal reserves are concentrated in the eastern parts of India, while consumption of coal is scattered across the country, hence huge logistic costs. Energy requirements. India's coal consumption and energy demand will increase to 1,853 million tons and 3,000 billion units by 2030, respectively. Any shortfall can impact growth of country. Times other issues in coal transportation, low handling capacity of railway, improper loading and unloading infrastructure, and non-availability of wagons. Times initiatives for coal transportation. Ministry of Coal released a draft coal logistic policy for 2022 aims to create the optimal infrastructure for coal transportation at the origin and destination point. Around 67 first mile connectivity, FMC, projects are being implemented. 3rd November 2019 Rationalization of coal linkages. Times Ministry of Coal has initiated a policy initiative called Rationalization of Coal Linkage. It aims to reduce the distance in transportation of coal from coal mines to consumers, thereby decreasing transportation costs and increasing efficiency in coal-based power generation. Through this initiative, coal PSUs are fostering a more sustainable energy ecosystem. 59 WWW. Times so far, 4 rounds of rationalization of linkage have taken place, covering 73 thermal power plants. Times the move has resulted in rationalizing of total 92.16 million tons of coal and has saved around rupees 6,420 crores to government. 60 WWW.